Hello everybody and welcome back to the second shelf and to another tag video. Yeah, me, because this tag is not even that old. I've been tagged end of February, which is not even 2 months ago. Just about 2 months ago. So that's relatively new for me, and that this is the author in practice and theory tag, and the original tag was created by Adrian from Strip Cover Lit, and of course I will leave a link to his original tag video down below. And Adrian also tagged me, and I haven't talked about writing a lot recently, and I thought, well, this tag is a good idea, to make another video about my writing, because as most of you know, I'm also a writer, published a couple of books. So it's a nice way of talking about that aspect of my work with this tag. And I have the questions here on my phone, so I will not be looking at you all the time. The first question and the second and the third I will answer in one, because the first is, how do you normally start writing a poem? The second is, how do you normally start writing a short story? And the third is, how do you normally start writing a novel? I don't write poems and I don't write short stories. As many people, especially if you want to write, I did write poems when I was a teenager, and they were awful. And thankfully, I realized that they were awful, and I haven't written a poem since. And short story, it's just not my thing. I don't read many short stories. I don't like reading short stories, and I have no interest in writing them. So basically, I can only answer the third question: how do you normally start writing a novel? And that, for me, it depends a bit whether it's literary fiction or crime. I write both. I've written, a novel, literary fiction novel, and I've also written crime. And with the crime, if I'm thinking of writing a crime story, for me, the core is always that I have the basic idea for a plot. So the basic idea for a murder, and who did it and why. So that is always the starting point for my crime fiction. For literary fiction, it's different. It mostly starts. I've just finished a novel recently, which is now at the editors, fingers crossed. And with literary fiction, it starts more with an idea about a theme or a topic I want to write about. So my first book, The Decision, was about a German literary figure in the 1930s who had to make a moral choice. And I developed this idea not by wanting to write about this historical figure, but by wanting to write about identity, about what it means to be German, what it means to live in a different country. And that came from a personal experience, because I'm born in Germany, and at the time that I've started writing that novel, I've been living in Holland for quite some time, but I just recently became a Dutch citizen. And so this idea of what it means for me to be German after I acquired a Dutch passport, that sort of gisted in my mind, and I wanted to write about that topic, but I didn't want to write nonfiction. And then by chance, I came across this writer, this author, Thomas Mann, who had to immigrate during the Third Reich and who lived in Switzerland, and who then had struggled with his identity as a German writer. And there are 3 days in particular where he has to make a choice about how he will position himself towards the Nazi regime. And I thought this is a perfect vehicle to explore the ideas and the topics that I want to explore of identity as a writer, but also a cultural identity. So that's mostly how a literary fiction book starts for me, with an idea for a topic, and then more or less by chance I come across a story that fits that idea. I don't know whether that makes any sense. We'll see that down in the comments. Question number 4. Do you have a writing strategy? I'm not... I watched Adrian's video again, and I'm not 100% sure what he means by strategy. But when I start with this idea, then I just start to make random notes, developing the plot and the characters. So once I have a main character, whether like in the previous literary novel, it was a historical figure, so I didn't have to develop that character myself. In the more recent book that I've just finished, it's a completely made-up character, so I normally start with that. Like, what's the background of the main character? How does he look like? What's his family situation, his work situation? And from there, I incorporate this in the plot. But as you know me as a reader, I'm a plot-driven reader, so I'm also a plot-driven writer. That means before I start really writing the chapters, I have to have the outlines of the plot in mind. And for me, that means I need a beginning, and that's very detailed in the sense I need a first sentence. Once that first sentence just pops into my mind, it is as if the story is sort of grounded with that first sentence. And I also need the ending. Most of the time, I don't know quite how we get from this first sentence to the ending. That's the plot then that I have to develop. But those two pillars are sort of essential for me to be able to start at all. So that I think that you could call that my strategy. Start with, your main character, that you see that person, that you really have a feeling for that person, and then have the basic outline, the basic ingredients for the plot. Number 5, do you compose on paper or computer? Both. In the early stages, when I'm just, sort of thinking and meddling with characters and plots and names, I write on paper. I have notebooks, yellow notebooks that I always buy for these initial notes, and then I just scribble. The names of the characters, for instance, I write different names, and then I think, no, that doesn't fit. So the basic outline of the plot, I also scribble. And if it's historical fiction, or if there is any other research I need to do, that can be for a crime fiction, for instance. If I want to explore a certain crime and that involves poison, I have to research that poison and how it works and what it looks like. All that stuff is done on paper. Once I start writing that first sentence and then the chapters, I only write on the computer. I never do a draft on paper, but I just start writing on the computer. So it's a mixture between the sort of pre-writing phase, the more research and scribbling phase, and the actual writing is then done on the computer. Number 6, you are allowed to claim one work of fiction as your own. What is it? I thought about this question quite a bit because, of course, it would be easy, to take any work of fiction, literary fiction that I really love, like, I don't know, Edith Wharton's work, The Age of Innocence, and then just to think that I really would love to have written that. And of course I would have. But you basically, I could pick any of those books that I really admire from, early on until more modern or modern classics or contemporary fiction. But then I thought, no, that's not what I would like to claim. So it might come as a surprise, but the book that I then now chose is actually N.K. Jemisin's The Broken Earth series. 3 books, sort of mixture of fantasy and sci-fi. And why I picked this, because that is always has been a genre that I would love to be able to write. I mean, I really enjoy sci-fi, and the fantasy is not that much my genre, but the fantasy that is more like a science fiction novel, centering around certain themes. I would love to be able to have that imagination. And if you look at N.K. Jemisin's trilogy, The Broken Earth, I just love not only the characters, but the ideas for the world she came up with, how she creates this new world with a little bit of magic, but also a background and personal stories. I would love to be able to do it, but I lack imagination, I think. So I don't know whether I will ever write sci-fi, or this kind of sci-fi where you really have to invent a new world. That's what I mean. And I'm, jealous is maybe not the right word, but I'm really, in a way, envious of people who can do that. And I know that I just can't. I tried a couple of times and it was just not good. So that's what I would like to be able to do. Number 7, do you set goals? If so, how? You're seeing my t-shirt underneath. That's not the way it should be. Anyway, that's more proper. Anyway, goals. Yes, I do. I work best with deadlines. And if you are a writer, most of the times you have to set the deadlines yourself. And I also work best with quite a strict schedule. So when I work on a new book, I work in the mornings for maybe 3 or 4 hours, and I do that every day. And I don't have a word count that I have to hit every day, except for the month of November, if and when I participate in NaNoWriMo, where you have to hit 1,600 words every day. But for me, it's more, I have to spend a certain fixed period of time behind my desk writing. And not stopping if I write one sentence and then nothing comes. No. Just keep sitting and keep staring at your screen if necessary. And my experience is that, at least for me, that works, because after a certain time, a second sentence will come and a third sentence. And they might all be crap and they might get deleted the next day. But the fact that I just have to sit there for a certain amount of time, that works really well for me. And then I make sort of plans. My novels tend to be not that long. I'm not writing 500 or 600 page novels, so I can sort of estimate that I write approximately a page or 2 or 3 sometimes a day, and then I know how long it will take. Then I make my plans with my publisher, and that also helps me because it keeps me going, that I know I will have to finish this at a certain point. So yeah, and talking, by the way, about strategy, which was question number 4, I forgot to mention something that I've learned, and that really works for me is, I don't know, if you write anything, you will know the excitement in the beginning. That when you have this idea for a plot or for some story you want to tell, and it's really exhilarating. And I always think this is the best story that has been told ever in the whole of literary history. And that's good because it keeps you, it sort of keeps the engine getting started. But of course, after 2 months or 3 months, you work on the book and, you realize it will be maybe okay, but it will not be the best book ever written, and maybe not even the best book I've ever written. And that is a point that a lot of people then give up and look for a new idea and this new excitement for something, exhilarating, new, exciting book. And for me, it helps then at that point. I have a big piece of paper across here, across the computer, above the computer, and it says, done is better than good. And what I mean by that is you have to finish it. It might not be perfect. it might not even be as good as your last book, and certainly not as good as all the other books that have been written by all these other fabulous writers, but you have to finish it. Done is better than good. So to add to the question about strategy, that's my main strategy about getting something done. Anyway, back to number 8. Boom, you win the Nobel Prize in Literature. What is it that got you the award? Well, the obvious answer would be that there's nobody else left who could receive the award. But yeah, that's making fun of yourself, because you don't want to brag about your qualities. But if I try not to do that, but just talk about what I think are my qualities as a writer, then I think it's for the capability of having a topic, and often it's a moral or a political topic, and making that into a good story. So I don't think this will ever be good enough for me to win it, but if I were to win it, that would probably be the reason. Number 9, boom, you are a Nobel winning millionaire. Where do you live and what do you drive? Well, I'm not going to drive anything, even though I have a driver's license, but I'm not driving cars. It's bad for the environment and you don't need that. And I don't have a place that I absolutely want to live. I'm very happy with the house I live in now, the apartment here in Cologne, and I was happy with the apartment in Amsterdam. It's very important for me to have a surrounding that I feel really comfortable in, because I write at home. I work at home for not all the time. I have outside jobs as well because I have to earn money, but it's important that I really feel comfortable in the house that I have. But if I really had excess money to spend, I would probably have some sort of little cabin or barn in some countryside or other, preferably close to a lake or a river. But that's as far as my dreams go. Number 10, boom, you're in writer heaven. There are 5 writers in your writers group. Who are they and why? Well, I'm not going to go for 5. I think that's too much. So I chose 3, and that is Dorothy Parker, because she is witty. I take her for the wit, and she will bring the booze. She was a short story writer, and I think her language witticisms were hilarious. I bring Mary McCarthy for the depth and the political insight and her way of being able to look at society and make a good story out of it. And of course, Ursula Le Guin, the queen of sci-fi fantasy, because maybe she can teach me how to write a proper sci-fi novel. And then the only thing left is to tag people, because this has been going on for 18 minutes, so that's long enough, and still my t-shirt is showing. But I'm not going to film this all over again. You just have to deal with the white t-shirt showing underneath my blouse, or whatever you call it. I tag my 2 writing buddies, because I do have a writing group, and that works really well. And they are both on BookTube. And the first one is Mel from Mel's Bookland Adventure, and the other one is Jess from Garden Scriptorium. So Mel and Jess, I hope you will do this tag, because both of you are my rocks in the writing process, and we really enjoy our writing group, which is tremendous and helpful. So I would be interested in hearing your answers. 19 minutes. Okay, we have to finish this up before we hit 20 minutes. Anyway, this was it for the Authortube tag, the theory and practice tag by Adrian from Slipcover Lit. Thanks again, Adrian, for tagging me, and thank you for watching it if you made it to the 19.5-minute mark. Talk to me down in the comments about writing if you want to, or maybe you have other questions about my writing process. I'm always curious what you want to know, and I'm happy to answer them. And I will see you all soon in the next one. Bye-bye.